Hello, welcome back to the Raw Prospect Podcast, episode 32. We are back on the air. I am your host today, Michael Ween. Emmy Nixon unfortunately couldn't be with me tonight, but he'll be back next week. The first podcast since I've been at UT, so I'm excited to get back, talk some football. Football season has begun. We've been through 4 or 5 weeks of the football season. A lot to get to, including my Steelers, who are 0-3. You'll see my reaction to that later. But I think since it's Saturday, it'd be appropriate we start with some college football. So, first thing I want to talk about, I want to update you guys on what I think. I got a question from one of the guys, Mason Vore, about the Heisman race up to this point. And of course, this week was week 5, so I got people asking me about Jalen Hurts, who I think is going to win the Heisman. What are the rankings up to this point? Who's leading the race? Who's behind? That type of thing. So I'll go ahead and talk about that. To this point, I think the leader is pretty clear, pretty discreet, pretty obvious, and it's no surprise that Jalen Hurts, if the season ended today, should win the Heisman. All I have to do is just throw you these numbers. So today, we'll start with what happened today. In a week 5, 55-16 win today over Texas Tech, Hurts threw for a career high 415 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, had 70 rushing yards, and another touchdown on the ground. Only in 3 quarters of play. He entered today with 2 career passes of 70-plus yards. He had 2 in the first half of today's game. And to add on to that, he had 308 passing yards in the first half. That's the most he's ever had in any half of his college career. To put that in perspective, last year's Heisman winner, Kyler Murray, although he only played one season, never had a 300-yard passing half in his college career. In addition to this, we can look at his statistics so far in the season. He has a 77.65 completion percentage, thrown for 1,295 yards, so basically 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns while adding 450 rushing yards and 5 more touchdowns on the ground. So that's a total of, if I'm doing the math correctly, 17 touchdowns, a 78% completion percentage, and 1,300 total yards. Actually, about 1,700 total yards when you factor in passing and rushing. He threw his first interception of the season early in the third quarter today. But so far, he looks by far and away the leader for the Heisman, and his draft stock is rising. I don't know where he'll be drafted. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert are going to be the first 2 quarterbacks drafted in this upcoming draft, assuming they come out and declare for the draft. But I think Jalen Hurts, I think a team maybe in the mid first round, maybe the late first round, may take a chance on him depending on how the rest of the season plays out. But I think as of right now, he's a second round talent. I don't know of many teams who actually need a quarterback as of now. I know my Steelers might need one sooner than later, so maybe they could look at that. They don't have a first round pick now. They traded that away, but we'll get to that later. But I know there's some teams whose quarterbacks are aging or about to retire, the Saints, the Steelers, the Chargers, those teams that have aging quarterbacks who don't have the ability of Tom Brady to play till they're 45. There will be teams that are looking for quarterbacks. I just don't know how the draft order is going to be, and it will all depend on who's picking where. But to this point, I think I see Jalen Hurts as a mid-first round, maybe a later first round, early second round draft pick. Lincoln Riley is just working his magic. I don't know what it is about Lincoln Riley in that offense. It just works. No matter who you plug in so far, whether it's Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, or Jalen Hurts, who all have different skill sets, it just works. You look at his first quarterback and Baker Mayfield, smaller, not as athletic, but was really accurate. That worked. Really smart, really accurate, really precise in throwing the football. And then you get Kyler Murray, an even smaller quarterback who was supposed to play baseball, and you work him into that offense. And he could do everything. He was kind of that dual threat, do everything type quarterback. He could throw the deep ball. He could throw it into tight windows. He could run it. He could hurt you with his legs a lot more than Baker Mayfield could. And now you have Jalen Hurts, which is kind of that bigger prototype, more NFL type quarterback who's built, I guess, more for the NFL. He's more your prototype NFL quarterback. Strong arm, good at throwing the deep ball, not as accurate and precise and not as fast, but he can hurt you with his legs. He's kind of that prototype in a NFL quarterback when you look at his body type, how he throws the deep ball, just his football acumen. He has a lot of experience. So his stats are great to this point. Lincoln Riley's working his magic. As I mentioned, 78% completion percentage. Oklahoma's destroying everyone. He has 17 total touchdowns, 12 through the air, 5 on the ground, just threw his first interception today. He's been great. There's nothing bad to say about Jalen Hurts to this point. And it's really crazy. I don't know. I mean, I know they've had 2 straight Heisman winners. A third one would be really crazy, and it's definitely heading towards that. We may get that. Second on my list, I actually have a Joe Burrow, quarterback for LSU. I think he's being a little overlooked. Now, I don't have many stats in front of me because I didn't have as much time to prepare for this podcast, but I will pull up Joe Burrow's stats, and he's also trending towards a first-round grade or first-round draft pick with his play up to this point this season. Obviously, the second week of the year, Texas played LSU on the road. LSU played Texas on the road. Marquee matchup between 2 ranked teams. It was a shootout, and Burrow was great. 31 for 39, 470 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He was great, and he led LSU to a big win on the road. That was a question. Can he win in the big games? And he did. He answered that call. As far as his statistics, though, I'm pulling them up right now. What I do know off the top of my head is that he threw 6 touchdowns in last week's game against Vanderbilt. It was virtually perfect. Let me see. His full statistics for the season. 1,520 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, and a 93.2 quarterback rating, which is 3rd in the country. Let's see if we go deeper into that. And he's completing 80% of his passes. 80% completion percentage. Well, basically 81% if you round it up. 1,520 yards, 17 touchdowns, 2 picks, 225.6 quarterback rating with an average of 13 yards per throw. So he's been fantastic. The statistics say everything you need to know about his season up to this point. Now, they haven't played the toughest of defenses yet. We'll have to see how he does when you get to play those tougher SEC defenses like Auburn and Alabama. And those teams, he's played Vanderbilt, Georgia State, Texas, and some other Oh, Northwestern State. So he hasn't played the toughest of defenses yet. But up to this point, he's done everything he needs to do. And LSU's offense looks great. They put up 66 points on the road against Vanderbilt. And I don't care how good Vanderbilt is, that's hard to do. To throw 6 touchdowns in any football game. So he's also on the rise in terms of his draft stock. So he would be second on my list. Just because I've watched him a couple times and I've seen him play, as I have with Jalen Hurts. Some of these guys I haven't got to watch play as much. The third guy on my list was on the list at the beginning of the year. It's Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for Alabama. He's also been really good, as you would expect. He was expected, I guess, to perform as he has up to this point this season. Today, he is insane. I think he threw for 6 touchdowns and rushed for another one. He had 7 touchdowns total today, which was insane against Ole Miss and SEC defense. But up to this point this year, he's completing 78% of his throws, 1,300 yards. How many touchdowns? 17 touchdowns, no picks. Quarterback rating of 225. And as I mentioned, was responsible for 7 touchdowns today against Ole Miss. Nothing else I really need to say there. So up to this point, we have 3 quarterbacks. My first non-quarterback on my list, who I watched last week, just dominate in the first half until he got hurt against Michigan. Running back for Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor. He's also been insane up to this point. I'll pull up his statistics real quick. He was hurt in that Wisconsin blowout of Michigan last weekend and didn't play some of the game. I think the second half he was out for most of it. But other than that, he's been fantastic, rushing and receiving. I'm going to pull up his statistics. Let's see. So he has 7 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns. So he has 10 total touchdowns through how many games? Through 4 games. So he's averaging about a touchdown and a half per game, which is pretty insane. It says he has 440 rushing yards and 70. I don't think this is right. Hold on a second. He definitely has more than 440 rushing yards. Let's see. See what ESPN says. Yeah, I don't think that included today. Those stats didn't include today's performance. So in 3 games, he had 440 rushing yards for 7 touchdowns and 70 receiving yards for another 3 touchdowns to make a total of 10 touchdowns in 3 games. So he's basically averaging 3 touchdowns every game. I don't know what he did today against whoever I think they played Northwestern. Whatever he did today. Let's see. Today he ran for 119 yards, got his 11th touchdown on the ground, in a 24-15 win over Northwestern. So he has about over 500 rushing yards for 8 total touchdowns on the ground through 4 games, plus another 3 touchdowns through the air. So he's been pretty insane and is helping that Badgers team look like one of the favorites in the Big Ten. They look really good. That defense looks really good, but that's another topic for another day. And the last guy on my list, he is playing right now, so I don't know what he's doing right now, is the quarterback for Ohio State, Justin Fields. I'll pull up his statistics real quick on my phone. He's kind of an outlier in this race. I think the clear top 3, if I had to say, would be Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and Tua Tagovailoa, just based on what they've done to this point. And then you can include Jonathan Taylor in that conversation if you don't want to go all quarterbacks. And this is where we start. This is the point in the list where we start to get to, okay, these are the dark horses, really. or guys who are playing really well and would be deserving of the award, but just probably won't win because the other players' performances are just so insane, as I've mentioned so far. But Justin Fields, let's see. He's playing right now, so his stats won't include what he's doing tonight against Nebraska. But let's see. Yeah, Ohio State is beating Nebraska 48-7. So I assume he's doing all right. But these stats say 880 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, no picks, a quarterback rating of 92.5, fourth in the country, completing 70% of his passes, 10 yards per throw. Oh, that's tonight. So tonight I'm a little scattered on my statistics. So tonight he's 15 of 21 for 71, 15 out of 21, so 71% completion percentage. Not a whole lot of yards, but he's only thrown 21 balls. 212 passing yards, an average of 10 yards per throw, 3 touchdowns through the air, and no picks. So if you add that to his season stats, he has about a little over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, no picks, and the fourth best quarterback rating in the country. And Ohio State is just absolutely destroying everyone they play. I'm not sure who they played to this point. I'm not sure if it's anyone great. Let's see. So they beat Maryland 76-5. They beat Indiana 51-10. They beat Cincinnati 42-0, and they beat Florida Atlantic 45-21. So you're telling me that Florida Atlantic was their closest game so far? That's ridiculous. Their average margin of victory, let's see. So if I do the math, I'm going to do some live math on the podcast. So 45-21, so that's 24 points. So 24 points is their closest game to this point. So you have 24, you have margins of victory of 24, 42, 41, and what is that, 71, and right now 41. So their margins of victory up to this point are 24, 42, 41, 71, and 41. That is ridiculous. We'll talk about Ohio State as a team a little later, maybe. But Justin Fields, his performance speaks for itself. I mean, I don't really know how good Nebraska is. They're 3-1, so they must be decent. I don't know who they played up to this point, but still, I've been to a spring game at Nebraska. That stadium is loud, even at a spring game. So I can't imagine what it is. Those fans are crazy. They go crazy for spring games, so they must go crazy when a top 5 team in the country comes into their stadium. I haven't got to watch a lot of the game tonight, but playing in that environment is really first big test, playing in a really big college environment. He's been great. So, I mean, these 5 guys, Jalen Hurts, who I think is the clear top candidate so far. Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa aren't far behind. Jonathan Taylor you can throw into the mix, but he's a running back, and they like to pick quarterbacks for the Heisman, especially if they're from Oklahoma. And Justin Fields. He's been fantastic. There are a lot of guys you can talk about and put in the conversation. It's just usually the top 2 or 3 guys throughout the season end up winning. So that's my Heisman. Sorry, I'm a little scattered on my statistics. I didn't have time to prepare tonight because I have other stuff to do. But that's my thoughts on the Heisman, if that answers any of y'all's questions. So, yeah. Make sure if you have any other questions for me as I'm going along here, make sure to leave them in the live chat if you want me to answer any other questions. But that's the Heisman Trophy case. Now, I think Max Vore asked me about where I think Ohio State ends up at the end of the season. well, I just talked about Ohio State. I mean, they look really good. Um, as I mentioned, up to this point this season, margins of victory are 24 points, 42, 41, 71, and as of right now, they're up by 41 at Nebraska. Um, they have a Heisman candidate quarterback or Heisman worthy quarterback. They have a great defense, great talent, all that defense. They have J.K. Dobbins, who's having a great year up to this point. I can actually pull up his stats real quick to just prove my point. But they're good all around, and their schedule isn't at all that tough. I could definitely see them in the playoff at the end of this year if they run the table in the Big Ten or potentially have one loss, depending on who it's to. If it's like, I don't know, I'll have to look at their schedule. But if they have one loss or are undefeated and they win the Big Ten championship, I think they'll definitely be in the playoff, and they're going to be tough to beat. So far, no one's been able to stop Justin Fields. I don't know if anyone will, but we'll just have to wait and see. But J.K. Dobbins, the running back, let's see. I want his stats, not his recruiting. Sorry, people. He's been great. Supposedly, J.K. Dobbins and Justin Fields have outgained the entire Nebraska offense together. Not even accounting for the wide receivers, but let's see. It won't give me his statistics. Oh, that's because I spelled his name wrong. J.K. Dobbins, not J.B. Dobbins. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so up to this point this year, not including tonight. Okay, up to this point this year, and Ohio State's only played 3 games because I think they had a bye. 68 attempts. This doesn't include tonight. 68 attempts, 477 yards, average of 7 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns, and a long run of 60 yards. He also has 5 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown through the air. That's through 3 games. So he's on pace for about 1,500, 1,700 yards, somewhere in there, and about 12 to 15 touchdowns. That's pretty legit, if you ask me, on 7 yards a carry in the Big Ten. I know Big Ten play is just starting, but that's pretty insane either way you look at it. So I think Ohio State, they have a great team. Justin Fields has been great. J.K. Dobbins has been great. They have good receivers. They have a good defense. I think they'll have maybe the best defensive player in this upcoming draft again, which is pretty crazy. So, yeah, Ohio State, they're looking really good. In fact, I think they've looked better than Clemson has. I mean, from what I've seen from Clemson, they don't look like the number 2 team in the country right now. They almost lost to Carolina today, which blows my mind that Carolina went for 2 when they could have just tied the game and sent it to overtime. I didn't agree with that call, but that's a different story for another day. Carolina, you muster up 21 points against Carolina, a team that won 2 games last year, which is pretty crazy to me. I think Ohio State's looked better than Carolina. I think they've looked as good as Georgia. I think Ohio State up to this point has looked like the number 2 team in the country, aside from Alabama. I think it's been Alabama and Ohio State. I think those have been the 2 best teams I've seen so far to this point this season, through about 5 weeks. Clemson just hasn't looked all that dominant to me. As I mentioned, they struggled with Carolina. They just haven't looked all that great in the games that I've watched. And I only watched the game against Syracuse, which they looked pretty good, but not great, and the game today. And I mean, they beat whatever it was, Coastal Carolina 51-0, but you're supposed to do that. Okay? North Carolina was bottom tier ACC last season. They won 2 games. They went 2-10. And you muster up 21 points and almost lose to a Carolina team that had 2 wins last year. It's just no team gets that much better in one off season to the point where they almost beat the defending national championships on their home turf. I mean, they just haven't looked like a top 5 team to me. That's my opinion. Leave your opinion in the comments. Any other college football questions you might have, I can address. I'm going off the top of my head here. So my head's spinning. So I'm just throwing you my feelings. And I'm using my phone for everything else that I need. So to transition, about 25 minutes in, I think it's appropriate at this time that I address to the world my thoughts on my favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, to recap, if you haven't been following the NFL or just don't know or don't care, to this point, this season, Pittsburgh, I don't think anyone predicted this, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are 0-3. And I know they lost Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, but I would have never forecasted them to start 0-3 either way. They come out opening night, Sunday Night Football against the Patriots, get pounded 33-3. Just look terrible. The next week, they look a little better, but lose at home in the home opener to Seattle 28-26. And their quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, hurt his arm and is out for the season with elbow surgery. And then last week against the 49ers, they played a little better. Defense forced 5 turnovers, but they still lost to the 49ers 24-20. How do you think I feel? Luckily, this week, we get to play Cincinnati at home. We should win that game. If we don't win that game, you'll definitely be hearing from me on YouTube with you better hope. You two better hope that the Steelers beat the Bengals on Monday night at home, or else I might lose my mind. But up to this point, let's talk about what's happened up to this point. We can't predict the future. We can try to, but usually we're wrong. First of all, it all starts with stopping the run and getting the running game going. Let me say this. I'm going to call it James Conner. You have looked like an absolute bum up to this point. Let me look at your stats, James Conner. All right? It makes me want to go into my bathroom and throw up when I look at this. Okay? The Pittsburgh Steelers are known for running the football and great defenses. And up to this point this season, you have 34 carries for 97 yards, an average of 2.9 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Really? That's what you have. You think that's going to win you football games? 34 carries, 97 yards, less than 100 yards, not even 100 yards. He hasn't even hit triple digits yet. 2.9 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. We did not pay, the Pittsburgh Steelers front office did not pay Le'Veon Bell because we thought we had a viable option in James Conner. I'm talking to you, James Conner, and James Conner in our backfield. And this shit is what you give us? 97 rushing yards, 2.9 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown? That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And no, I don't want to hear about the goddamn offensive line and how the offensive line has fallen apart. It's not the offensive line's fault, James Conner. There's 3 Pro Bowl linemen on that offensive line. David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, and Alejandro Villanueva. Don't tell me they're all of a sudden declining because you lost your offensive line coach and Mike Munchak, who went to Denver. That's ridiculous. 97 yards in 3 games. Put me in a fucking football helmet. I'll do better than that. That's ridiculous. You cannot win in the National Football League, and I don't care that it's a passing league. Okay, I get it. The NFL is now a passing league. Everyone wants to throw the football. But 97 yards of rushing? That's ridiculous. I mean, that has to rank last. I mean, it's maybe Miami's worse, but that's awful. Don't blame the offensive line, James Conner. You got to be better than that. I thought you were better than that. I believed in you. You had a great year last year. You had like 950 rushing yards along with like 400, 500 yards receiving. But 97 yards in 3 games? That's like 32 yards a game. That's horrible. Do you realize, and I know it's high school, but do you realize that, and I tweeted this out on my Twitter. Go follow me on Twitter, @RMLean3. Okay, @RMLean3. If you have not, go follow me on Twitter. I post all my statistics and sports opinions there. And you can find good stuff there. And subscribe to our channel, by the way. But and go follow Emmy Nixon too. But do you realize, James Conner, that 5-star commit to Texas, and I'm talking about Texas because I go to Texas. Okay, if you don't like Texas, screw off. But do you realize that Bijan Robinson, the 5-star commit to UT, the 2020 5-star running back commit to UT, and the top recruit in next year's class, just rushed for 498 yards and 6 touchdowns in 1 game? And I don't care that it's high school. And you're on pace for about that many yards this season. Through about a quarter of the season, you barely have 100 yards. You don't even have 100 yards. That's ridiculous. Don't blame the offensive line. James Conner has to be better. You can't win football games in the National Football League rushing for 30 yards a game. And I don't care how big of a passing league it has become. And whether you have to use Benny Snell or Jalen Samuels some, I don't care. The running game has to be better. Those guys have to be better too. And they need to run the ball more. Randy Fichtner, get your act together. Run the ball more. Don't blame this on the offensive line. There's 3 Pro Bowlers on that offensive line. And you run for 97 yards in 3 games? That's ridiculous. You wonder why you're 0-3? That's fucking why you're 0-3. You can't run the football. And then on the other side of the ball, defensively, you can't fucking stop the run. Let me pull up these statistics for you real quick. If you can't run the football, understand, let me educate you guys on something. Okay? If you can't run the football and you can't stop the run, guess what? You're not going to win football games because you're not going to win time of possession. You're going to be one-dimensional because if you can't run, the only thing you can do is pass. You're going to lose the time of possession battle. You're going to be one-dimensional. And you're going to be predictable. You can't win games like that. And when you can't stop the run, it's even worse. Okay? Let me show you something. This is absolutely ridiculous. Defense. I want rushing defense, please. Let's see where the Pittsburgh Steelers rank in rushing defense so far. Let's see. Oh, 27th. That's fantastic, Pittsburgh. 139 yards allowed per game. Really? That's pathetic. 139 rushing yards allowed per game. It's like fucking college team. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I know one of the problems is you can't tackle, miss too many tackles. But I thought our run defense was the strength of our defense. Our front seven. There's talent there. TJ Watt, Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, Bud Dupree. Now we have Devin Bush in the middle. And this is what you give me? Okay, don't blame Mason Rudolph. He was thrown into the fire. He didn't know Ben was going to get hurt. Okay? Give him more time. Okay? We'll get to the coaching staff. There are some problems there, but I'm not going to put all the blame on Keith Butler and Mike Tomlin yet. Okay? It's only 3 games into the season. But the performance is just terrible. You can't allow 139 yards per game and only rush for 97 yards in 3 games this year and expect to win any one of those football games, no matter who you're facing. 139 yards per game. What great running back have you faced so far that you give up 139 rushing yards per game? Let's think about this. The Patriots. Okay, Sony Michel. He's okay. He's good. Next week, Seattle. Chris Carson, really? Last week, who's their running back? Matt Breida? What happens when you go face Todd Gurley? Huh? What happens when you have to face, I don't know, freaking Nick Chubb, who looks really good for Cleveland right now? And I know Cleveland's 1-2, but he looks really good. He might look like their best offensive weapon up to this point. If you want to know how to turn it around, it starts with running the football effectively, because 97 yards in 3 games ain't going to cut shit in the league. And stopping the run. Okay, let's look at the teams who are at the top in run defense so far. Look at this. Look at this. The teams that stop the run. Oh, hold on a second. New England only allowing 36 rushing yards per game. They're 3-0. Oh, the next team, Baltimore. They're only allowing 60 yards per game. They're 2-1, and they almost beat Kansas City. Seattle, 2-1, only allowing 67 rush yards per game. Chicago, another 2-1 football team. Super Bowl contenders, only allowing 68 yards per game. San Francisco, they're 3-0. They're only allowing 75 yards per game. Buffalo's even 3-0. Their run defense is great. They're only allowing 85 rushing yards per game. Dallas, they're 3-0. They're only giving up 90 rushing yards per game. It's ridiculous. The Rams are right behind them, only giving up 93 yards per game. But then look at the bottom, where Pittsburgh's at. Cincinnati, 31st in run defense. Oh, wait. Have they won a game yet? No. Miami, last in run defense, to my surprise. Have they won a game yet? Not even close. Arizona, 29th. No, 30th in run defense. Have they won a game yet? Nope. Pittsburgh, 27th in run defense. Have they won a game yet? Nope. This shit matters in the league. Whether it's a passing league or not, I don't give a shit. It all starts up front. Okay? And the offensive line's been good. It hasn't been as good as past years. And they want to make excuses about, okay, this offensive line is on the decline because Mike Munchak left. That's not the fucking reason. It's because he sucked. Get it together, Connor. Why didn't we pay Le'Veon Bell if this is the shit that we're going to get week in and week out? The Pittsburgh Steelers don't make. Understand, this franchise has been to 8 fucking Super Bowls, had multiple Hall of Famers, okay? 30 plus Hall of Famers, and are going to have more coming this year. Great defenses, the steel fucking curtain. Mean Joe Green, Jack Lambert, L.C. Greenwood, Jack Ham, Mel Blount, Brett Keisel, James Ferrier, James Harrison, Casey Hampton. And this is the embarrassment you put on the football field? The front office isn't stupid. They saw something in you, James Conner. They believe in you. They don't let elite players go for just no reason. They're not stupid. Kevin Colbert has drafted multiple Hall of Famers in his career. Multiple. He's not a stupid general manager. Okay? Make him look like the general manager that he is. It's ridiculous. And coming into this year, okay, if I was, you would expect I'd be having this conversation with the secondary. But no, the secondary's actually looked good. They've actually looked good. But this run defense, it's bad. It's the Pittsburgh fucking Steelers. We run the football and we stop the run. When we were winning Super Bowls from 2001 to 2000, I think it was 11, okay? We went to 3 Super Bowls in that span and won 2 of them. We ranked in the top 3 in run defense every single year. From 2001 to 2011, the Pittsburgh Steelers ranked top 3 in run defense every single year. And where did that fucking get you? It got you to 3 Super Bowls, and you won 2 of them. And look at this. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, I think you guys get my point. I think I got my point across pretty effectively. Okay? I've been a diehard Steelers fan, and I always will be. Okay? Always ride and die with my teams. I'm not a fair weather fan. Okay, understand that. Just because the fucking team's 0-3 doesn't mean that I'm, gonna jump on some other team's bandwagon. No, that's not what I am. I'm gonna like the Steelers fucking no matter what. In fact, I think this is a sign that I am a true fan, because when your team sucks, you should get pissed off. And when it's an organization that has the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the most successful sports organizations in all of sports. And this is the performance I'm getting. It's ridiculous. So run defense, be better, a lot better. James Conner, get your head out of your ass. Don't blame this on the offensive line. There are 3 fucking Pro Bowlers on that offensive line. Alejandro Villanueva, David DeCastro, and Marquise Pouncey. And they're all completely healthy. Don't blame this on the offensive line. Okay? You're taking on a bigger responsibility this year because we don't have our Hall of Fame quarterback in the lineup. He's hurt. He's done for the season. Forget about it. Forget about Big Ben, okay? You can't fret on the fact that he's not going to play this year. It's over. Okay? You have Mason Rudolph, a rookie. Okay? You can't expect Mason Rudolph, basically a rookie. He was drafted last year and spent a year behind Big Ben, but this is the first time in real game action, so I'm calling him a rookie. You have a rookie at quarterback. Okay, I don't care how good or bad the rookie is, how good he's looked, how bad he's looked. I think he's looked pretty good. He's made a couple mistakes, but I think he's looked pretty good. You can't have this and give him 30 rushing yards in a game on the road and expect him to fucking win the game. Oh, and I didn't even mention the fact that we were up in that 49ers game with about 5 minutes left until James Conner fucking fumbled it, gave it away. Pick it up, James Conner. I bought your fucking jersey for a fucking reason. You're telling me that you, a Pittsburgh native, went to college in Pittsburgh, survived fucking leukemia, cancer, and you can't run for more than 30 yards in a fucking football game? That's ridiculous. Because your offensive line all of a sudden sucks? No, it doesn't. That's not the problem. I'll stop. I think I've got my point across. I didn't even talk about the fact that, and this adds to my misery, is the fact that Mike Tomlin's supposed to be known as this defensive coach. Okay, this is my problem with Mike Tomlin. Okay? I don't question his football acumen. I don't. I think he can coach. I think he's a good coach. Okay, I'm not like all the other psychopath Steeler fans who every bad game want him to be fired. I'm not like that. Okay, I'm more realistic. Okay. But this is what pisses me off. 2 things piss me off about Mike Tomlin. And I'm not asking for him to be fired, okay? He's won 64% of his games as a head coach in the National Football League since he was hired in 2007. That's only trails Bill Belichick, okay? He's been good. He's been really good. And he's never had a losing season. This might be his first one. He's never had a fucking losing season. And he's been to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. Should have won the other. But don't get me started on that right now. Okay? But these are my 2 problems with Mike Tomlin. First, okay, his reputation is not what he puts out. You are a defensive coach. And this is what your defense looks like? 27th in run defense, and you preach running the football and stopping the run? Okay? What you say is not what I get. Stop talking about it and do it. I'm tired of talking about we're foaming at the mouth to get on the field, and then you look like shit against Seattle. And you lose it in the home opener after getting blown out week 1 against New England? Were you really foaming at the mouth? Were you really that excited to get on the football field and go win the game? Didn't look like it to me. Rushing for 30 yards doesn't look very motivated. If you have a reputation, live up to that reputation, is basically what I'm saying. If you're a defensive coach, we'll put out a respectable defense. Okay? I'm not blaming it on the secondary. The secondaries looked much improved, and I'll get to the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. But once I stop with all the problems, the myriad of problems this team has. But I don't know what the problem is, honestly. I don't know if I can put it on Mike Tomlin. But the second problem I have, just to finish that point, is some of the clock management stuff he does, some of the challenges, just game management decisions he does in games are ridiculous. I don't really get them, but I'm not going to rant on that. Okay, I've already ranted on enough stuff. Okay. But my whole premise is don't put this all on Mike Tomlin. Okay, he's a good football coach. Go look at his record. It only trails fucking Bill Belichick since he came into the league. He's been to Super Bowls. He's won Super Bowls. He's been in AFC Championship games, multiple of them. He's even beaten the Patriots once or a couple times, but one of the times Tom Brady wasn't playing, but he still beat them. I mean, he beat, even though they didn't make the playoffs, he beat Brady last year at home. I mean, and then to make myself even more miserable is reading Steelers Twitter, and all these psychopath Steeler fans who don't know what they're talking about are complaining about the passing game and how the passing game just doesn't look good. You want to know why the passing game doesn't look good? Because you can't fucking run the ball and you're one-dimensional. And when you're one-dimensional, defenses catch on. If they're not worried about the run, well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to stop the pass. And then guess what? After that, you're fucking stuck. Don't blame this on Mason Rudolph, offensive line, or the receivers. It's not their fault. It's the fucking running game. Get it together. Randy Fichtner, James Conner, Jalen Samuels, Benny Snell. Whoever it has to be. I don't care what their name is, what color skin they have, what they look like. This team needs to get a running game, and they need to learn how to stop the run. And don't tell me there's no talent on that defense. There's 8 freaking first-round picks starting on that starting defense. Just on the starting defense alone, we have 8 first-round picks on our starting defense alone. Joe Hayden, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Sean Davis, Devin Bush, Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, TJ Watt. The list keeps on going. And you rank 27th in run defense? And you're pretty much last in the league in rushing offense? Sorry. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And as I said at the beginning of this rant, you thought this rant was bad. If the Steelers lose on Monday Night Football to the Cincinnati Bengals, you will hear from me on YouTube. Either that night after the game or the next morning, the next day. I don't know what my class schedule will be, but you'll hear from me at some point. You will hear from me. Better get together. I just told you how. Get a run game and stop the run. And automatically, I guarantee you, just doing those things will turn some of the outcomes of these games. The bright side is, if you look at our schedule, I know we're 0-3. And I just mentioned the reasons why we're 0-3. They're pretty obvious if you know or follow football. But if you look at our schedule, we have to leave Pittsburgh once in the next 6 weeks. 5 of your next 6 games are on your home turf. Okay? It's the Bengals at home, the Ravens at home. You go play the Chargers, but do they really have a home field? I'm guarantee you half that stadium will be Steeler fans. Okay? That's basically like a home game, if you ask me. Then you play the Dolphins at home, the Colts at home, and the Rams at home. Okay? You don't even have to leave Pittsburgh again until November 14th. You leave Pittsburgh once in the next month and a half. There are no excuses for this team not to have 3 or 4 wins by the time week 8, week 9 rolls around. I don't care if they have a losing record. I don't care if they are 3-5, 4-5, whatever it is. There's no reason, no excuses. I'm telling you. I think I know football. Stop the run and run the ball. That's it. If you do those things, receivers will get better. Quarterback play will be better. Secondary will get better. The whole team will get better. But losing time of possession because you can't stop the run and can't run the football, you don't win football games that way. And then fumbling and giving the ball away late when you're up and are relied upon to run the football to finish out the game. Let me tell you something. Okay? Le'Veon Bell, and even let me get this straight. I don't hate Le'Veon Bell, okay? Antonio Brown's a different story, and we might talk about that, although I'm kind of dragging this conversation out. But I don't hate Le'Veon Bell, okay? I don't care the fact that he was suspended twice and he got hurt and he wanted his money. I get it, okay? You see what happened to Earl Thomas late last season? Seahawks didn't give him his money. He broke his leg, okay? I understand why Le'Veon Bell wanted his money, and the Steelers weren't going to give it to him. Guess why? Because they knew they had James Conner, and they knew it was supposed to be good. But up to this point, it hasn't been. But let me tell you something. Late in games, we could rely on Le'Veon Bell. One thing he never did, or rarely ever did, was fumble the ball, especially late in games when we needed him. Okay? That's just the worst thing you can do. Is fumble. You have one responsibility. Not to get yards in that situation. I mean, get as many yards as you can, but not to get yards. To protect the football, especially when you're backed up in your own territory. And look what you do. You fumble, they recover, they score a touchdown, they win the game. What do you want me to say, James Conner? The fact we lost that game was because of you, not because of the offensive line. Not because of Mason Rudolph. Not because of the defense. Defense forced 5 turnovers. Well, when I say force, some of it was just bad offense, by the 49ers, just dumb mistakes. The Steelers kind of got lucky, but he still got 5 extra opportunities. And the reason Mason Rudolph didn't look as good as he actually was because he had no running game, no run support. It's ridiculous. But I'll stop. But just remember, for whoever's watching or has watched this, if the Pittsburgh Steelers lose at home to the 0-3 Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night, and they do not show better performances in running the football and stopping the run, you will hear from me very soon after, live on this channel, and it won't be pretty. Transition. We'll try to end in the next 20, 25 minutes, maybe 15, depending on how long this next topic goes. I thought I was never going to have to talk about this, but I think it's funny. It's almost funny now. The fact that Antonio Brown is not even in the league. He's not even in the league. Everyone laughed at my Pittsburgh Steelers when they traded him to Oakland for a 3rd and a 5th rounder. Everyone laughed at him. Like, that's such a stupid trade. We give him an F- for that trade. Oh, really? What did he do for the Raiders? What did he do for the Raiders? What was his statistical output for Oakland? Oh, wait. He didn't play not one fucking game for Oakland. And everyone wanted to laugh at my Steelers for trading Antonio Brown. That's not how this works, people. Okay, they didn't just trade him for no reason. Okay, I understand in his time in Pittsburgh, he was the best receiver in the league. He was putting up elite numbers comparable to Jerry Rice in his prime. Okay, 6 straight seasons with 100+ catches. But that's not why they traded him. They traded him because he's turned in, since they gave him the contract, he's slowly progressed and turned into a freaking psychopath. What do we hear about immediately after the Steelers traded Antonio Brown to the Raiders? What do we hear about? Let's think about the stuff that's happened since then. He goes to France, doesn't know how to use a cryotherapy machine, and basically, freezes, burns his feet because he doesn't wear shoes in the cryotherapy machine. He's out for half a training camp. Then on top of that, cries about and complains about not getting to wear his helmet that he's worn throughout his career because it doesn't meet NFL standards anymore. He makes big news and takes it to whatever. It's this whole big story. It's on fucking SportsCenter every freaking day. He's hurt. He's complaining about equipment. And on top of that, not showing up to practice and training camp. And he never ends up playing a game for the Raiders. and people laughed at my Steelers for trading him. And then after he gets his release and forces his way out of Oakland like his own destructive self all of a sudden likes to do or wants to do, he goes to New England. Like, there's no way he would screw up the chance to play for the New England Patriots, right? Like Bill Belichick he'll figure him out. A couple days later, Antonio Brown accused for sexual assault. Plays one game, Patriots hear the news, they move on, they release him, and now he wants to blame the NFL for his actions. It's almost funny. I almost want to laugh right now, but I can't because I can't. Okay, I'm not in the mood. And then he says he's no longer playing in the NFL. So he's not going to play anymore. He basically retired, but he didn't say he was retiring. He said, I'm no longer going to play in the NFL. And then he goes on to have some Twitter beef with Eric Weddle, of all people, and Baker Mayfield. Oh, what do you know? This must be fun, right? It has to be fun, right? Antonio Brown and Baker Mayfield getting into a Twitter feud? What more could you ask for as an NFL fan? Social media nerds out there. Let me read you this ESPN article. Okay, I'm going to read you this article. Antonio Brown jabbed back at Baker Mayfield over Twitter on Saturday after the Cleveland Browns quarterback referenced Brown in an Instagram comment. Mayfield initially posted a photo of himself on Instagram from when he was at Oklahoma with the caption, quote, just some undersized walk-on. Keep that same energy, close quote. Somebody, and by somebody I mean someone random, responded, quote, win football games. That speaks louder than these AB-ish style posts. Mayfield answered with, you're right. Let me call out my teammates and throw a fit about my helmet, then go freeze my feet off. This is where AB comes into play. Brown responded by ripping Mayfield on Twitter. Mayfield and the Browns face Lamar Jackson and the Ravens on Sunday in Baltimore. Brown tweeted about Mayfield. Sorry ass Chico, keep rolling right. You ain't done nothing in this league yet. The internet only place you would ever talk to or about me. You know you get beat quick. Slice you up some humble pie. I don't even know what that means, but that's what he said. So that was that, right? And then he said something like, can't believe you were drafted before Lamar Jackson. It's a big scam or something like that. You can go read his Twitter. But the more interesting one, the more funny one, I think, was his feud with Eric Weddle. It said Mayfield isn't the only NFL player Brown has sparred with over Twitter this week. He exchanged bars with Los Angeles Rams safety Eric Weddle. It doesn't have the quotes, but I can go to his Twitter real quick and tell you guys what that was, because I thought it was, when I initially read it, I laughed. Because it's gotten to the point where it's just laughable. And people wanted to laugh and make fun of my Steelers for getting rid of this locker room poison that is Antonio Brown. Okay. Yeah, he said should have never been drafted before Lamar Jackson. What a big scam. But Eric Weddle. Let's see what happened with Eric Weddle. Okay. So AB tweets out, okay, this is a couple days ago. He tweets out, the game needs me. I'm like, test answers. Wait, whatever that means. Eric Weddle responds, definitely don't. Okay. Fantasy Fred, some random guy on Twitter, says, Weddle, I F with you, bro, but you can't guard AB 84 over the top or in man coverage. Eric Weddle responds, don't need to. He isn't on a team. This is where AB comes into play. AB says, you need some attention, little man. Glad I put that stiff arm in your neck in Pittsburgh. You deserve that, little Weedle. And then Eric Weddle responds, ha 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 ha, AB. When are you going to learn that it isn't about you? Never was and never will be. Got a game to get ready for. Good luck, my guy. AB says, bro, I don't even know you. Don't call me AB. That's my NFL name, dummy. I'm not on your team. Never been. Shut your mouth, jabroni. Eric Weddle then responds, you're not making any sense, bud. Glad you're not on my team. Call yourself whatever you want. Doesn't matter to me one bit. Good luck at Central Michigan, my bro, as he's re-enrolled in classes at Central Michigan to finish his degree. And which is somewhat good for him, I guess. And then AB, another tweet that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but he says, keep you luck, duck. Listen to your team. Stay focused on your opponent, not AB. AB is the brand, not the individual. Clearly an AB fan. Even know about education. Oh, really? That doesn't even make any sense whatsoever, but that's what he tweeted. And then after Eric Weddle didn't respond, he also tweeted this. He said, some things will never change. And it's a picture of him. The one on the right of your screen is of him stiff arming Eric Weddle. And the other is him in 2016 reaching over the goal line for the game-winning score against the Ravens to win the AFC North for the Steelers. Both with Eric Weddle in the picture. So kind of taking shots there. So you can decide who you side with in these Twitter feuds. I'm not going to take any sides. But I'll just say my point is, and I know I've been dragging out some of these conversations because I didn't have any real time to prep today. But I think I've done pretty well, especially with that Steelers talk and this talk. But my point is, he's a complete psychopath. Okay, he's gone crazy. I don't know what happened. Okay, the I don't know the old Antonio Brown, the undrafted 6th round pick or late 6th round pick. Teams passed on him. Okay, didn't get drafted to the late 6th round. Homeless growing up, had to find his own way, made his own way. Underrated, went to Central Michigan, undersized, all that stuff. The great story of Antonio Brown, his come up and his rise to stardom. Hardest worker in the league. I don't know that guy anymore. Now it's psychopath, getting into fights on Twitter, being accused of sexual assault. He's just gone completely crazy. I don't even have the words to describe what's happening. Not even playing in the NFL anymore. Who would have predicted that Antonio Brown wouldn't even be in the league 2 years ago? Nobody. Throwing his Hall of Fame quarterback under the bus. It's ridiculous. And to answer my dad's question, he asked me on Twitter, do I think he'll ever play again in the league? No, I don't. Antonio Brown will never play another game in the National Football League, mark my words. And it's hard to believe anything he says because he's kind of a psychopath, but I can believe. I don't think he's ever going to play again. especially, and I know the investigation hasn't finished yet, but especially if he's proven to be guilty in the sexual assault case. I don't think he's ever playing again. Why would any team want to touch him? He's a locker room cancer and a psychopath. I mean, if you're that desperate for a receiver and you want to pick one up, I maybe would take the risk, right? Because his on-field production speaks for itself. But otherwise, I ain't touching him with a 100-foot pole. And I feel bad. I generally feel bad for the Raiders and the Patriots because now they have all that dead money on their cap. But they made the good decisions releasing him. I don't even know. No, I don't see him playing in the NFL again, and he's just way out of. He's gone wild mentally. I think he's a psychopath. Getting into fights on Twitter, complaining about every little single thing people call him out for. Yeah, I don't. There's nothing else to say. But to wrap this thing up, we talked about kind of the overview of the Heisman race up to this point in the college football season. My list was Jalen Hurts as the front runner, Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa close behind, Jonathan Taylor, the only non-quarterback on my list, and Justin Fields. Those were my top 5 Heisman Trophy candidates. In case you missed that, you can go rewatch that part of the podcast. I was kind of scattered today because I didn't have any statistics written down, so I had to look them all up. But I laid all that stuff out for you at the beginning. And then I had my, as it says in the title, I did my talk on the Steelers because people were bugging me about the Steelers. And I laid out why they're 0-3. There's some language in there, but excuse my language. That's just how I feel. Okay, I think this podcast needs some more feelings, more like what we actually feel, not so much just the plain old statistic content type stuff. But those were my feelings on the Steelers. I gave you those, and I hope they turn it around, or else you'll be hearing from me again on this channel, either late Monday night or Tuesday at some point, and it's not going to be pretty. You can go watch that part again. And then we talked about Antonio Brown because we had to. I mean, he was on SportsCenter basically every day for all of training camp and for about the first week or two of the season until he finally hung it up. So I think Emmy's coming back in town next weekend, so we'll probably do a podcast then. It'll be a lot more structured, and it'll be a lot more prepared. If I had to guess, we'll be doing NFL power rankings, probably something along those lines. We're going to start talking NBA because, believe it or not, NBA starts October 22nd, so we're getting closer and closer to that. So we're going to start our NBA preview. We might talk more college football depending on what's going on, and then the MLB playoffs begin this coming week, so we got to talk about that and do our preview for that. So lots of good stuff coming up. Most likely next week I got to talk to Emmy on the exact time. But go follow me on Twitter at RMWean3 if you have not already. Go follow Emmy Nixon. I think it's at Emmy Nixon. Go follow the podcast Twitter. I think it's at Raw Prospect Podcast, something along those lines. And hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. But I think that's going to do it for today. So if you missed any parts, go back, rewatch. As I said, we talked about Heisman Trophy race. I gave my very passionate thoughts on the Steelers. And I didn't even talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick, but we can do that in a future podcast. And they talked about the crazy case of Antonio Brown, whether or not he'll play in the league again. So if you have any questions, feel free to tweet me or text me or whatever. Leave likes below. Leave any questions or leave your opinions in the live chat or in the comment section. And we'll see you next time with Emmy. So hopefully. So peace out.